is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Sue Duran and Sheila Howard were longtime teaching partners for second and third graders. They know firsthand how difficult it is to get kids interested in writing. So after they retired, they wrote a book for children entitled Ozzie. So I'm guessing that there were some frustrations here.
I think the thing that's the most frustrating with teaching kids how to write is just getting them started. A lot of times they don't know what they want to write about. So we would take fairy tales or classic tales and read them to them and then teach them how to write like a different version of it. And that's how we kind of came up with this story. And when we would teach different versions, obviously we would try to collect different versions of a story and then show them how you can have the same basic story but tweak it a little bit and then make it your own.
So
okay?
This is a retelling of The Ugly Duckling.
Yeah, this is Sheila. What we did is we changed the setting of the story to Australia. And then we did all kinds of research on the animals and habitats in Australia. And so Ozzie is actually a baby platypus that gets put into the nest of a black swan. And so then we told the story, and all the animals in the story are native Australian animals. Like the Ugly Duckling, he doesn't feel accepted in the group of cygnets, which are the black swans. And so he goes off to find where he truly belongs. And so during his little process, he goes through all kinds of different places in Australia. He goes to the sheep farm and the bush, and then he goes to the rainforest and encounters all these other animals that kind of give him a hard time. And so the story also lends itself to opportunities to discuss what bullying looks like and how to deal with bullying, because he gets bullied along the way.
So there's a lot of lessons here for kids.
Oh, yes, there are. Let let Sue talk to this.
So is this a teaching tool for kids? What do you do with this story? Do you read it and discuss?
Well, it really is kind of threefold. First of all, it's a picture book. So it's just a great read aloud for kids, and you can talk about different versions of stories. And you can also teach the writing process through that. The other way that a book can be used in a classroom is to address bullying. Because he is bullied physically, verbally, and emotionally, and so you can identify ways that kids may be bullied and get kids to buy in and share their stories, and then talk about, well, what could he have done differently? What could the animals have done differently? And relate that to everyday experiences. Then we also use the book in how to teach different facts about animals in Australia. And in the back of the book, we have a section that's on Australian animals, and it gives little fun facts about the different animals that we've used in the story.
Since you're former teachers, are you able to get this book into schools?
Our big hope is that we can get it into school systems. We have read it to a kindergarten class and kind of showed them how you make pictures match your writing. And then we have tailored it to older kids, and we're going to another school in a local school district, and all of the teachers in the building are going to read the story to their children, and then we would come in and answer questions or go into individual classrooms and teach how we write and how we started with an idea and going through the rough draft and then getting editing from peers and all of those different steps in the writing process. And we will come into classrooms and teach that. We need to get our foot in the door, and then we're hoping, it'll spread word of mouth. We have another local school district that has purchased the book and put it in all of their elementary school libraries. And then we will contact different principals and how they can use us to come into their building, whether we're doing bullying or writing process or teaching animal facts, and we can come in and really tailor that to what the school's needs are. And we have done one reading at a Barnes & Noble, and we had a really good turnout. In fact, Barnes & Noble will only purchase 20 books for a book signing, and we sold out of those, and then we had orders for 10 or 15 more books.
Oh, nice. Man, you guys got the whole package going here. You got the lesson plan. I imagine a lot of schools want and need. You can execute it. You've provided the workbook to go along with it, and you're working the phones and bookstores and really doing a great job of getting all the info out there. Take notes, people. Christina Farina was a writing teacher in beautiful Hawaii before she became a tutor, and she's been writing her book, Journey to Angkor, for 13 years. So you were inspired by the trip of a lifetime.
I went on a trip to Southeast Asia with a group of teachers that were part of the East-West Center put together from the University of Hawaii. And it was a trip to help teachers learn about Southeast Asia in a first-hand way rather than just teach from what we learn in books. We went to Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia was our last trip. And Cambodia just struck me. Going to Angkor was something that I'd wanted to do since I was in college and first learned about it. So getting the opportunity to go, I just was so mesmerized. I didn't want to leave. And when I came back, I felt like that I just wanted to still be there. And starting the story was kind of my way of still being there.
Tell me about your main character.
Chandara was actually a real person that I met when I went to Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. We were all assigned a student that was our guide at the university there. And Chandara was my guide. And I just fell in love with him. He was just so positive and just such a happy person in spite of all that he had been through and his family had been through during the Pol Pot era. And I just was mesmerized by his name, when Chandara means star. So I used the name. The character himself is more a combination of other people that I met. You know, Chandara himself never went to Long Beach. He was not a refugee that left during that time. So I just kind of combined a lot of stories and put it into his character with his name, with that name.
What was the thing that struck you, that stayed with you?
The resiliency. In spite of what they'd been through, they still found joy and love and happiness and forgiveness. It's amazing to me. And the beauty of Angkor, and the fact that so many people in this country don't even know about it. I just had my first book signing the other night, and I was talking to people about Angkor. You know, well, what's your story about? They would ask me. And I would say, well, do you know about Angkor? No, I've never heard of it. And it's just so amazing because around the 12th century, it was the largest city, the most populated city on this planet. And so for people to not even know it exists is amazing to me. And that was the reason that I wrote the story, is I want people to know about the beauty of Angkor and be able to experience some of the history of it in an entertaining way. So hence historical fiction. You know, the story itself is fictional, but there's so much truth in it. Right. And there's so much research and so much real in it. So that was my goal. I felt as a teacher, if I wanted my students to learn about it, that maybe they could read a story that could help them understand some of the history and some of the incredible grandeur that place was and is. You know, I want people to really want to see it. It should be on everybody's bucket list. It's just amazing. When I was in Vietnam, I was concerned that they would have some kind of animosity towards me, the ugly American, and that wasn't the case of what I discovered at all. And they recognized that, you know, Americans were just doing their job just like they were. And, you know, the American soldiers didn't like what they were doing, most of them, you know, at all. It was just they were doing a job. Right. And it is beautiful, you know. Vietnam, it does have beautiful beaches. Cambodia, the problems there, a lot of them stemmed from the Vietnamese War because we were bombing Cambodia illegally and lying, saying that we weren't. And all that has now come out. The Cambodians believed Pol Pot when he said the Americans are coming, you need to evacuate the city. So it gave him the ability to start his horrible reign. And for that, I feel as Americans, we're somewhat responsible. We all know about genocides. Why wasn't it stopped?
That's a question we can ask over and over and over and over again because it's
Yeah.
going on somewhere on the planet all
Yeah.
the time. Thanks, Christina. John Coleman II is a 24-year Navy vet. He did 3 tours in the Pentagon, went on to teach, and about 8 years ago, he retired and started writing with a vengeance. The name of his book, The Outcome. John.
Actually, it's the third of a series of books that I write. It's not a series, though. My son and I were sitting at a kitchen table, and we were discussing I won't say politics, but the environment of the country. And it dawned on me that I really didn't know what the country was about, how we got here. And so being an academic type of guy, I said, okay, fine, I'm going to go study it. And so I spent about 3 years studying the country, and I wrote a book called The Ultimate Inaugural. And basically it takes the president's inaugural addresses and reviews them and grades them against the Constitution, the 6 pillars of the Constitution. Once I got done with that, I figured it out. It wasn't really the politicians or the system. It was us, the people, that caused us to get where we are. And so then I wrote a semi-autobiography about myself and SEER School and some of the stuff I went through in the Navy, talking about humans. And then I got to the third one. So I have a history book, a semi-autobiography, and then the third one I said, you know what, I need to write a fiction book about this. That's when I got to The Outcome. It's a book about a common man that actually gets mad at the system and decides he's going to run for president. And against all odds, he wins. And for those out there that are thinking this might be a Trump book, it's not. I started writing it, believe it or not, in 2014. He's a common man. He gets elected president. He tries to give power back to the people and has some successes, some failures in that. And then because of the decisions that are made in the United States, it affects the entire world. And based on that, the world comes back and addresses what he's done. I don't want to give away the spoiler, but in the end, the world comes back and accuses him of things because the United States is so ingrained in all the world as a whole. We think of politics as local. And it is local in the sense of the voting and what's coming up, but it's actually universal too. And because when we make a decision here, it affects a lot of countries. So what happens is when that happened, it affected other countries, and those other countries came back at him and said, you made us do this. And therefore I'll just say they address the issue. I'll leave it there. I don't want to give away the spoiler on it.
Okay, that's fine. Do you talk about your book anywhere?
I have book signings.
That is the most difficult thing people do.
It is way hard. It is way hard. First off, you have to be attuned to what's happening in your area and other areas. And then you get a hold of, to be honest with you, libraries is a good place to start. So I've gone after some libraries. They had a local author day here at the library in Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I live, and they brought in about 30 authors. So I got a chance there to, show my wares, I guess, if you will. The easy part is writing the book. What's hard is once it's produced and put out there, how do you get people to see it with so many thousands and thousands of books coming out every day? So I'm still working on it. I'm a novice. I'm still working on it, and hopefully this will help in the process.
All right, John, keep working it. It is break time on the Page Publishing Book Club. We'll be right back right after these words.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Robert Holbrook was a fly fisherman in Alaska for 25 years. He had a fishing store and some other businesses. And when he left Alaska to retire off the coast of Maine, he realized, I have a lot of stories to tell. How you doing, Robert?
One has no idea when you spend your winters in Alaska and you're 130 air miles from the nearest road. Your nearest neighbor is 75 miles away. It's different. It's interesting. I was going to write a memoir, and chapter 1 came along, and I had a great time writing chapter 1. I said, wow, I really like this. This is fun. So chapter 2 was just a collection of short stories of various peoples that had come to visit us here in Alaska, and we had taken them fishing. And some of them were clients, some of them were friends, some of them were just people from the store. And then we went on to chapter 3, which was the island, and the store had closed. We lost the store, and I had a year there where I was kind of undecided as to what I wanted to do. Didn't want to leave Alaska, so I went and I spent a year on an island, and that was interesting. But then chapter 4 came along, and I sat down and I said, you know something, Robert? If you really want to be one of those Alaskan outdoor fiction writers, then let's let it go. Let's go ahead and just let that pen fly, because I wrote this story with a big pen. I've never had a computer, and typing is way beyond me. So I had more fun writing that book. So at the end I didn't know how to stop, but I had to. So I left the end of the book wide open. There were a lot of things that we had accomplished. We had built this empire out in the bush, and we now had 3 lodges to support. We had 16 outpost cabins to support, plus all the people it took to run it, which were very colorful people. There's so much to it. It's a love story. It's an incredible adventure story. We have to deal with bears. We call them BFBs, big fuzzy bears. Plus, our main reason for being there is world-class rainbow trout. And we never kill one, never. They're not food products in my world. And we're talking about rainbow trout well over 20 pounds. And people don't even know that those rascals exist. And if you want something that's going to take your mind off the everyday world, and if you want to read something that's happy, that's incredibly lucky, we have a store. My wife, she does have a computer, and she has gotten in touch with one of the local bookstores here in Freeport, Maine. That's where L.L. Bean is homeported, is in Freeport, Maine. My wife is in contact with the lady who actually buys the books for these 6 bookstores here on Eastern Maine.
You are a lucky man, because that's the hardest thing for people to do, is to set up these book signings, and probably the most important thing you will do. You are a lucky man to have a wife doing that for you.
Well, you know, we don't sit around. We go out there and we knock on doors. And we had a woman who owns a bookstore in Bath, Maine, and we asked the lady there if she might be interested. We had the sell sheet and everything with us. And the girl looks at us and says, "You're kidding me." She said, "Well, a woman who owns the store was in Montana fly fishing. She was going to be going on to Alaska to go fly fishing, but she slipped and broke her knee." So a few weeks after that, we found out when she was going to be back in the store, and we went back to say hi. Well, she sold a couple more books.
Way to go, Robert. That's what you got to do. Thank you. Hope Sarna is the mother of 4. She and her husband run an Italian restaurant in Little Italy here in Manhattan, and somehow she managed to write and publish her first book. It's entitled, I Want to Be a Boy. How did you manage this, Hope?
It was more for my daughter, because my kids would just sit around and I'd just make up stories like out of my head. But my daughter, one day she just came downstairs and she was just in tears, because she's the youngest of the 4 children, and of course 2 boys and 2 girls. So one of the boys were kind of teasing her and wouldn't let her play, and she came downstairs and she was just crying, and she's like, "I just want to be a boy." And she just went on, and I just started, the idea just popped in my head and wrote it down.
She just wants to be a boy so she gets a chance to play.
Yes.
How old is she?
Well, right now she's 12. When this all happened, she was like about 5.
So you wrote this almost 10 years ago, this book?
Yeah, it took a while.
Why? What were you doing? Having kids?
Yeah,
being a mom?
Having kids, yeah. Lots of animals, kids, the house, and I was trying to kind of draw everything out, and it was a little hard to do everything so quickly.
Yeah.
So it took a while.
So how's the story go?
It's more of a girl who loves to play dinosaurs. She likes to play pirates, and she loves sports. She never liked playing with dolls. she just wasn't a girly girl, and she just was kind of telling her mother, I just want to be a boy. And the mother just explains to her that she loves all the same things that she does, and she's a girl, and it's okay to love yourself, and it's okay, even if you're a girl, that you can like boy things, but they're not boy things. I mean, it's just you. Whatever you want to do, that's okay. It's who you are.
It's the point of the book to let you know that you're an individual and individuals can like different things, and maybe we shouldn't put labels on them like that's a boy thing, that's a girl thing.
That's what this book is about. It's to help little children have confidence in themselves and, not to put label on things and just make them feel comfortable with themselves. It's a fun picture book. It's like, you can make little sounds, and it's like, if you want to be a pirate and you have to say R and, just like little, to make it a little bit fun for the kids. I just wanted, because I grew up being a tomboy, and I knew what that was like, because my mother would say, you can't do this and you can't do that. So I saw the same thing to my daughter. And, now at times things are getting a lot easier and more accepted, but there's some children still out there that they feel uncomfortable to play other things. So I'm not looking to become famous. I'm not looking for anything like that. I do have other books that I will be writing because I really enjoyed it, but I just want to help kids. I just want a child to pick up the book and say, oh my God, this is for me. And that just puts a smile on my face. I had a few children that emailed me through Facebook, and they were really, they're just like, one of them sent me a video, and she read the book, and she's like, this is exactly me. I love this book. I was like, just put a smile on my face, and that's really all I'm just looking for.
That's the spirit, Hope. Thank you. Finally, Barbara Walker was superintendent of water sewer operations in Detroit before she retired and went full throttle on her lifelong passion, writing. The name of her book, The Methuselah Method. Barbara.
When my husband passed away, my children have been telling me, why don't you go online, to get a companion or something? And I've always been a little leery of internet, kind of relationship. So that got me started thinking about, I can do a book scenario that starts out with people, going on the internet looking for something. There's this senior citizen. Her husband had passed away, and she's kind of lonely and seeking companionship. She's a very attractive woman in her mid-60s. And at the gym, she met this charismatic man. They started out going to have coffee, and she was just entranced by this man because he was a person that could seduce women. He was one of those kind of guys. He's very handsome and very seductive kind of conversation and all that. They agreed to meet for a date, and she's surprised when she gets home. He actually comes to her house before they're supposed to meet someplace else, and he kidnaps her. And his motive for kidnapping is that he believes that he has actually found a formula to reverse aging, but he needs people to experiment on. So he actually kidnaps her so that he can do the final experiments to perfect his formula for anti-aging. And then her family starts out to find out, what's happened to her, and it gets into a really race against time to find her before he actually does some real damage or kills her in these experiments to try to reverse aging.
Oh my gosh, so she just falls off the face of the earth, basically.
Yes, she just disappears without a trace.
And so we spend the book looking for her.
Yes.
I want to find her and the reversal for aging. Can we do that?
You might not want to find a reversal for aging, but that's okay.
So how did it feel to get this thing done?
It was really wonderful to finally finish something, because I have several books that I've been working on for years. But my problem with writing is I get to a certain point and then my muse breaks down and can't tell me how exactly I want to end it. So I was very pleased to actually end a book and come up with a scenario that I thought, would entice people to read it. And in the last week, I've actually sold about 10 copies to my bowling league, because I'm a senior bowler too. But there's some friends of mine that are trying to plan a book signing event for me.
There you go.
Yeah, so we've got that on the burner.
Have a party. There you go.
Yeah.
So now what? You keep writing? You're going to pick up some of those old manuscripts and try to finish them, or what?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try to finish them and try to publish something else. And I'm also a poet, and I have a collection of poetry that I want to try to publish too.
Wow, you're keeping busy, Barbara. I'll give you that. I have a feeling we'll be talking again. Okay, that is a wrap for this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. If you have any questions or comments, email me at contact@pagepublishingbookclub.com. Attention, Alice. You got that? contact@pagepublishingbookclub.com. Attention, Alice. Maybe we can start a little dialogue here in the new year. Maybe I can read some of your emails on air. I don't know. Let's see what happens. If you missed anything on this show or any of our shows, just go to 710WOR.com and click on our podcast. That's all for now, writers. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.